Hey guys, the following is a quote from Chad Channing on how he joined Nirvana and his thoughts on Kurt's songwriting. It's not clear when this quote is from, but I believe the interview was conducted with journalist Jillian G. Garr. Before I read the quote, a little bit of background info. Prior to Nirvana, Chad was in a band called Tick Dolly Row. Interestingly, another member of Tick Dolly Row was Ben Shepherd, who would eventually become Soundgarden's bassist in 1990. What makes that even more noteworthy in terms of the Nirvana connection is that Ben Shepherd became Soundgarden's bassist after Jason Everman. Jason Everman was Soundgarden's bass player through parts of 1989 and 1990, after his time with Nirvana came to an end in the summer of 1989. I did a video on Jason Everman's departure from Nirvana. If you want to see that video, it's linked in the description box below. In any case, the first time Chad saw Nirvana perform was on August 9, 1987 at the Pennyroyal Theater in Tacoma, Washington, while Aaron Burkhardt was a member of the band. About a year later, on May 6, 1988, Chad was formally introduced to Kurt and Chris via a mutual friend. This also took place at the Pennyroyal Theater. Chad, Kurt, and Chris were there that night to watch Malfunction's farewell gig. On May 21, 1988, Nirvana had a gig at the Evergreen State College in nearby Olympia. Kurt and Chris invited Chad to come check out the show, which he did. It was after this show that Kurt and Chris first asked Chad to join Nirvana. Chad recalls the following, quote, "They were like, "Aw man, we really want you to be our drummer. Will you do it?" And although I'd like what I'd heard, I'd never even jammed with them before. I was like, what do they want? What are they looking for? Do they want somebody that sounds remotely close to their previous drummers? I had no idea, and so I was very tentative about it. But eventually I'm like, okay, let's do that. And after practice, they were like, so what do you think? In the early days, they're always asking me, what do I think? What do I feel about things? Because I never really said, okay, this is it. The word join just never came out of my mouth. I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and practice with you next time. Then they said, well, we're getting a show together. You want to play that with us? And I was like, yeah, sure, it sounds fun. And after that show, there was never really another word about it. That was it. I was drumming from then. It just kind of happened that way. It was weird. I think Kurt's attitude about Nirvana was, we are going to do something, do or die, so to speak. That was my attitude too, because I dropped out of high school, for Pete's sake. I didn't have anything else to do. It was either that or be a dishwasher for the rest of my life. And there was nothing else I wanted to do. Right when I joined, that's when I decided, I think this is going to go somewhere. I don't know how long it's going to be before it does, but I'm pretty sure it's going to. Some of that was about the way I felt about Kurt and his songwriting. A lot of the ideas that he was coming up with, this whole sort of big guitar but not quite metal sort of thing, more pop-oriented sort of deal, was stuff that I was totally into at the time. I knew that he had something unique that was going to get him pretty far. I didn't imagine quite how far, but far enough. Most people I played with were very experimental, whereas Kurt and Chris seemed to have a specific idea in mind, much more structured than most stuff I had done before, with very little time changes within the songs, a lot more straightforward compared to what I was doing in my previous band, Tick Dolly Row. Honestly, I found it rather refreshing. It took a little getting used to though. I wasn't really sure how much I should do for a while when I first started playing with them. But that was the cool thing about it. Although it was a lot more basic, it was a lot more of a challenge. Kurt could take simple chord ideas and with these vocal lines that he'd come up with, really tie it all together. When you listen to most Nirvana songs, they're pretty simplistic stuff, but it's the way that he'd sing and the way the parts were put together just made a world of difference.